My name is John WETTACK. I'm one of the founding members of CarbonWave and Director of Operations here in Mexico. I manage the facility that produces the biostimulant as well as the raw material to produce the value-added products, the leather and the emulsifiers. The goal of our company was to try to find a truly scalable climate solution. The oceans are really heavily damaged by the warming climate, but they are also one of the most powerful tools to help reverse that, and they're largely underutilized. Ocean resources don't compete with land resources for food, housing, or wildlife restoration, and in many cases, the ocean is, the sargassum can be used as a habitat for those animals.
In general, why is sargassum a problem? If you can just talk about the issues and how it affects, I don't know, resorts and stuff.
Sargassum is a really big problem, and what's happening right now is there's an open circle where the sargassum pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and uses the over-fertilized oceans to explode and create 20-something million tons of seaweed per year. But when it reaches land and it rots, that carbon goes back into the atmosphere as a more potent greenhouse gas, methane. What we want to do is close that circle, prevent the methane from going back into the atmosphere, and sequester the carbon that was originally taken up by the sargasso in the products that we create.
Specifically, what other problems does it create? If you could mention it in terms of recreation and stuff like that, and choking up systems.
When sargasso reaches the coastal ecosystems or the coast, it rots, and the rotting is when all of the problems start. Rotting causes anoxification in the water. Sorry, I screwed that up. Okay. Let me start over.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just ask the question again, just more specifically in terms of hotels and beaches and life in the coastal area. Talk about sargassum's problems.
When sargassum reaches the coastal ecosystems, it typically rots, and the rotting is when all of the problems are caused. Rotting causes anoxia in the waters, which is a lack of oxygen that kills fish, coral, mangroves, pretty much anything that's in these coastal waters. The rotting sargassum also releases hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs, hugely damaging to the tourist ecosystem here, the tourist economy. Nobody wants to go to the beach when there's a massive rotting seaweed. The waters turn brown, they become uninhabitable for life and unappealing to tourists.
So if you could answer this as a statement, when you collect sargassum for your own purposes that we'll get to, you're really doing the local environment and economy a favor.
Yes, we're doing the local economy.
Can you start that as a statement, kind of? In what we're doing, it's actually a benefits.
What we're doing is actually a really big benefit for the local economy and the local environment. We're creating an industry here in Quintana Roo, Mexico, where there is no other industry apart from tourism. We're hiring local labor, which is benefiting the economy there and the lower income part of the economy. And we're preventing all of the environmental problems from happening when the sargassum reaches the beach and rots. From a big picture of climate emissions of methane, but also erosion and local flora and fauna dying because of the sargasso.
You mentioned earlier at breakfast about what people believe to be the reason why sargassum is just exploding at the moment. Could you just say, that it is kind of exploding, there's a sargassum boom at the moment, and what could possibly be the cause of that?
Sargassum is caused by a variety of factors, but in our minds there are two principal factors that are the reason for how bad it is right now. The first one is the warming oceans. Normally in the winter the sargassum would die off, and therefore the bloom would not be as big the next year, or there would be none altogether. Because of the warming oceans, the sargassum is able to survive over the winter, and then because of the abundance of nutrients in the water due to deforestation and farming in the Amazon, the Congo, and Central America, there's so many nutrients that the seaweed bloom literally explodes into tens of millions of tons of biomass. The two main reasons that we believe the sargassum bloom is so bad at the moment are, one, the warming oceans due to climate change, and two, the abundance of nutrients in the Atlantic Ocean from runoff due to deforestation and bad farming practices, both in Africa, South America, and Central America.
Okay. as a statement, just why is sargassum an asset? Why is it a boom to you?
We chose sargassum because it's the largest algae bloom in the world. It's actually a relatively difficult feedstock to work with because it's relatively low in nutrients and compounds that we can use. In comparison to a seaweed like kelp, it's very hard to use. The benefit of sargassum is that there's a ton of it, there's a lot of it, and so now that we believe we've cracked the code on how to process it in an efficient and profitable manner, the scaling part is relatively easy, which is really exciting.
Can you just give us a talk through, and we'll use footage of that you've got, but you know where we are. This is the facility from it arriving by truck to dry, to sorting, to washing, to squeezing, to whatever.
Sure. The process that we have here in Mexico is relatively simple, and we designed that on purpose so that it's easily scalable. We take the raw seaweed and we rinse it to take off any sand that's left from the beach and the salt that comes out of the ocean. Then take that clean seaweed and we shred it and squeeze it. We juice it essentially, and we're left with two fractions, a liquid fraction and a solid fraction. The liquid fraction we filter and we use for a biostimulant product, a concentrated seaweed extract that is already a common input into agriculture. The dried fraction, or the solids fraction, we dry, we mill, and then we use for extractions of emulsifiers and plant-based leathers. The two main considerations we had when starting this company were to find a market-based solution that was economically scalable and also environmentally scalable in terms of carbon capture. Everybody is looking for a truly scalable way to capture carbon and to help reverse the effects of climate change, and we believe we've found a way to do that with sargassum. It's the largest algae bloom on the world, and it makes sense to use that as a feedstock to start with.
What's your personal view about the state of the planet? And
I'm a little bit pessimistic about the current state of the planet. I think that no one is concerned enough about climate change and the crisis that we're heading into. I believe that we need to all start thinking much more consciously about what we're doing to have an impact on the longevity of our society and of the planet. That being said, I'm optimistic about the future. I think there's a lot of really smart people doing really innovative things to solve the climate problem, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I think we need more people, more smart people in this sustainability revolution. It's going to be big. It's going to be very, very good for everybody who's involved in it.
one of the best ways to combat the blues is to roll your sleeves up and do something.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to the kind of climate depression mentality. I was working in the medical field for several years before this company, and I was very concerned about the issues, and I'm now working for a startup that's truly doing something about it. It's very exciting to be a part of, and although I'm making a fraction of the money I was and working twice as many hours, I'm a much happier person and very excited about the future.
Which button are you pressing? Whatever. Can you go through a list of some of the things that you beneficiate, what you're actually creating from sargassum?
The products we make?
Yeah.
So we're making, currently here in Mexico, we make a biostimulant, which is similar to a fertilizer, but importantly different. A fertilizer is more like plant food. A biostimulant is more like a plant supplement or plant steroids. So it helps signal to the plant what to do and to be more healthy, to use nutrients more effectively. We also create the raw material that is the input and the main source of material for the emulsifier and the leather products that we have. The emulsifier is something that bonds oil and water. So it's used in pretty much every cosmetic ingredient, lotions, creams, sunblocks, makeups, anything that you have oils in that you don't want the oils to separate out, you need to have an emulsifier in there. And finally, we're making a plant-based or a seaweed-based leather to replace traditional leathers and even to replace these alternative leathers that are largely made from fossil fuels.
Can you just give me one overview on the fact that sargassum is carbon capture? I just want to use this on its own.
Sargassum is a great tool for carbon capture. Currently it's actually a problem because when the sargassum reaches the beach and rots, it emits methane, which is even worse than carbon dioxide. But if we can close that loop and instead of letting it rot, we can use that carbon that's in the sargassum and make it into products that have longer life cycles or, sorry, let me start over.
Okay, let's just stop and start.
Sargassum is a great tool for carbon capture. It's very easy to grow. It grows in the open ocean on its own without any infrastructure needed. The problem is that when it reaches land, it rots and emits methane. So our company is trying to close that loop by preventing it from rotting and using the carbon that's currently in the sargassum to make products with and replace petroleum-based products.
That's great. Yeah.
Why is the Caribbean important? Your location, why is it important for where you are?
Thanks.
We chose Mexico and Puerto Rico as hubs for processing sargassum for a few strategic reasons. Puerto Rico, being part of the U.S., has significant trade advantages and tax advantages in the U.S., and Mexico is where the majority of the real problem is happening in relation to sargasso. There's about 270 kilometers of beach here that gets the heaviest arrivals of sargassum in the whole Caribbean, and it's really affecting the economy, which is almost entirely tourism here locally. And it's also affecting the ecology and the environment locally. The sargassum causes erosion, it kills plant life, it kills the reefs, it kills the seagrass beds. There's a plethora of problems that are caused when the sargassum shows up and rots on the beach. So we've located ourselves in the focal point of the problem to try to solve that local problem and also the global problems that are associated with it.